got Bank Style. I've never seen him before, so we got Bank Style. Hey, Bank Style.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm actually very privileged that I managed to get on this show. You guys are very busy all the time.
No, we're not busy at all.
No, that's why I say we should open it up more. I'm glad we finally got to connect then.
Yeah, I'm an Iranian living in England, and I'm sorry I couldn't be at Trafalgar Square yesterday. Unfortunately, I was unable to be there, and I actually regret it doubly now that I know Nuria, you were there. So it's a shame. There's a lot of wonderful people like Mariam Namazi and others that I miss. But I'm sure these protests will get more and more energetic, or they'll hopefully keep the momentum going. I don't know. I mean, I know that up to 70 people have already died in Iran due to these protests. So Mahsa Amini is not, she was the first, but there's been lots more. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot more to come. I don't think this is anywhere near the finish line. But I don't know. I don't know where how the Iranian government are going to be able to squash this. I'm sorry, I'm getting into the Iranian protesting. I don't know what you guys want to talk about.
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
I just want to make a statement about the whole hijab thing, because a lot of Muslim clerics use the example of an unwrapped sweet and how it gathers flies if you leave a sweet unwrapped. I'm sure you guys have heard that same analogy, and that's the excuse
Men are flies.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, they never really acknowledge that. Are they saying that men have the brains of flies? Is that what we are now?
Or at least the sexual willpower of flies. I don't even think they know the sexual prowess of flies anyway, but they think they're dirty and uncontrolled things that just latch onto anything and leave their shit there, basically.
That's pretty much it. I guess that's what, I mean, really, they don't think these things through, do they? They don't spend a lot of time thinking about the logical conclusion that you're basically calling all men mindless sex maniacs, effectively,
and
flies.
On you guys. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, this is like, the thing is, the whole thing with Islam, they constantly preach self-control. You have to do the Ramadan fasting. You have, to gain self-control, and yet men have no self-control over sexual desires. You mean we're just like automatons? We're just these sex beasts running around, just horned up all the time, just ready to stick it in everything. I mean, this is the thing. If Islam is about control, then where is Islam teaching men how to control their sexual desires so that they're not just jumping on every woman that goes by without a hijab, that isn't basically covered up head to toe in what I call bin bags? Where is that? This is something I actually asked Muslims: are there verses telling men that you have to control yourselves in these things? And if men control themselves, then you don't need to cover anything. Men take care of that. They control themselves. That's the whole
shift
point.
The onus back onto men. Why is the onus on the woman for just being in her natural state of existence?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's with everything in life. Gluttony. They say, should I? I mean, there are people, admittedly, I have to admit, society is a bit crazy, because there are people who sue McDonald's because they're overweight and they're going to die. Now, to me, that is as ridiculous as forcing a woman to wear a hijab. Now, don't get me wrong. Maybe food companies should certainly take note of the amount of sugar they put in everything. But nevertheless, you're the one putting things in your mouth. I don't think anyone has ever forced a Big Mac down anyone's throat. No one's been waterboarded by Big Macs.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure you can control yourself. And if not, it's on you. Same as if you're feeling, if you want to, if you feel some way about like having to harass women because they're not wearing a hijab, I'll be perfectly honest with you. That's on you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's on you.
So we can understand that, okay, there could be problems. So, like smoking is a problem, gluttony, or being junk food addict, or gambling. These things can be a problem, but there is a bigger thing at play, and that is we have to respect personal freedoms. So if you're doing something that is harmful to you, then the onus is on you. You need to take control. So if you see something and you go, oh, this is a very nice shiny car, I'm gonna steal it or rob this guy, then the problem is with you. So same thing. It's not an excuse that, okay, if there's a woman who's not covered up, there you go, I'm gonna pounce on her. So
But
yeah,
this is a wider
problem.
problem.
these people just don't get it.
I mean, the thing is, in the Western world, for so many generations of men have been raised to respect women's autonomy, women's choices, and all of these. So men have. I mean, I was raised in the West, so I'm a product of Western education. So I recognize all of those things. And I think the problem with the East, in some cases, as I say, not all, not all, but certainly with some men, is that they simply have not been taught that level of control, or that the fact that if you feel a certain way about a woman and a way a woman's dressed, it's on you to have that certain level of self-control, to look away or to simply not, give in to your sexual urges. It isn't on the woman to stop you from doing that, because I'll be perfectly honest with you, I've seen women in hijabs, and some women dress up so well, they do their makeup so incredibly well. I found women in hijab sometimes to be more attractive than a woman wearing miniskirt. And so that is on me. That's my psychological thing. I can't blame the woman because she wore the hijab really well and did her makeup well that day. It's me. And as I say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So sometimes you can see a woman wearing a miniskirt and you don't even find her as attractive as someone who's wearing a hijab really well, like head to toe, really well makeup, everything. I appreciate a woman who's actually taking time and taking care of herself. And for me, that is where,
I think it's irrelevant. But I think it's irrelevant. It's just not about us, period. But I get your point that
exactly.
if you're talking about that, these people say, oh, if you dress up or dress down, then you should be concerned about what kind of an impact it's going to have on men outside. Well, that's where you're wrong. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter how men are going to see this.
And honestly, as women, we literally dress according to like what our mood is that day. We're not even thinking about men or like what a man's reaction is going to be to this. I mean, that's also in your control. Yeah, one day you want to get really dolled up and you probably think, oh, I might get more attention today. But genuinely, we're not even considering that. We think everything is going on in our head. It depends on our day. It depends on how we're feeling. It depends on where we're going. And you expect men to be able to be the same regardless of how you've left your house then.
No. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It was nice chatting with you.
Thank you so much. This was a fun chat.
And
let's hope. I'd love to chat to you guys again, and hopefully I'll see you guys, or I'll see you, Noura, in one of the protests to come.
For sure. Yeah, I hope so.
Take care.
See ya.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sorry, just one point on that. Veiled Rose made a really good point. Yesterday, actually, I want to say there were a lot. Remember when I was beginning of the first protest I went to, and I was saying there was barely any women there. It was like a sausage fest. Yesterday, I saw a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but I'd say a reasonable amount of hijabi women. But then, as I said, like this video I have of them burning the cloth, there were two hijabi girls behind me and I heard them say, oh, what are they doing now? Is she burning the hijab? And the other one goes, yeah. And then they just walked away. And I was like, that was like the tip over point for them. Like, we're here, we think Mahsa Amini's death was wrong, but now you're burning that scarf. I really still strongly believe in that scarf. I can't watch you burn it. So there was that little bit of contention as well. That's why I was trying to have these discussions like out in the open about, do you guys know how hijab came down into Islam? Funny story. Have you got a minute? Like, you're like the opposite of dawah. Like, let me tell you a funny story about Umar. Once upon a time, 1400 years ago in Al-Manasi, it was a dry, hot, humid night, and one of Muhammad's wives had, but you get the gist, yeah? And then you'd obviously like just see that they're like them take that information and absorb it. But I think that's why it's important for us to always discuss this. And just from like the conversation we're having now, I want to make the point as well that this is something that's not unique to Islam. Like, I think religion but especially Abrahamic religions like Judaism, for example, because let's say that's the precursor to Islam. Islam is the youngest Abrahamic faith. Judaism also, I told you, like in the Torah, there's literal commentaries about how a woman being sexually free is like so scary for men, and how do we control them, and how do we control our sexual urges. Even if you look at FGM, the whole point behind it when they practice it in certain African communities and stuff is so that women really can't enjoy sex and they don't find pleasure out of it. And all of the reasons for doing that, whether it's honor based or whatever, is you're not going to actively go and seek partners to pleasure you, because in fact it literally kills you. It's so painful for you to actually have sex. It's not something you enjoy. Now you're just doing it when your husband wants it and to procreate. So this taking away agency from a woman's body has been codified. Like when any religion sets down a narrow parameter of what gender roles are. So for example, in Christianity, a woman should be silent, a woman's head should be covered in church, these kind of things. In Judaism, you have to shave your head and then wear a wig. Nobody really knows what your real hair is like. The only person that has the right to see that is your husband. Women aren't allowed. So you've really narrowly defined something so problematic. You've said hair is evil from the very get-go of like human evolution, when these religions were like gaining steam. And this is perpetuated till now with what we see in Islam. I'm just happy that the Islamic story of how it came about is probably trumps the rest of those issues to tackle in Judaism or Christianity. Islam is the lowest hanging fruit because the story is hella embarrassing. And it completely goes against the very tenets of Islam, because it shows that things end up in the Quran that aren't even revelations to Muhammad. Like, what, is Umar suddenly got speed dial to Allah, or is Allah suddenly like, you know, he's talking through Umar on this one issue and Muhammad accepts it? Muslims need to kind of sit down and think about all of these things. I thought it was only Muhammad's words or God's words verbatim that should be in the Quran, right?
Yeah. Just one more part that I wanted to highlight, since that you brought it up. It's not just an African problem; it is codified in Islam as well. Female circumcision. There are plenty of hadiths. There's Jamia Tirmidhi 109. You can see the Prophet said, "When the circumcised meets the circumcised, then ghusl is required." Now, obviously, it's not talking about two circumcised men. Obviously, one circumcised part, the other circumcised female. And it's in Tirmidhi 108, it's in Bukhari 6298. And there was one more hadith, I think it's just not coming up in the search engine, but it's definitely there. If you look for "do not cut too deep," there was actually one instance where the Prophet said, when you're cutting off, when you're doing the FGM, then don't cut too deep. This is what one of the instructions of the Prophet was.
So he didn't actively discourage it as well. You know,
Yeah,
he just said don't cut too much. It wasn't a full-on like rebuttal of it. Let's not do this anymore. But also I just want to give my thoughts on, I think the reason that this is, because this is very shaky ground in Islam, right? A lot of schools of thoughts don't do this. Thankfully, I hail from, it does not say that FGM is a thing. And in most of, I'd say, South Asia, Italy, there's like that Shia community, Horace, that we spoke about. What was it? The Shia, what's that community called?
The Jaffries. No, not Jaffries.
No.
Yeah, the guy who came to London.
Yeah. I forgot what their sect is called, but it's very heavily dominant in their sect as well within India. So that's a problem there. So what my theory is on this is that Islam obviously was spreading by the sword, right? And it was expanding and conquering new lands. So it was going and, as with like the Roman Empire and Christianity, it was going and trying to superimpose itself on all of these foreign lands and foreign cultures. But at a time when it would come into contact with some already established practices, sometimes Islam would just like mend itself or allow them to come in and like just be a little part of it. So then that group of people would be Muslims, but they would also hold on to some of their own cultural practices, because Islam had to make some concessions somewhere, absorb some elements of other cultures. And obviously Muhammad didn't really know what he was doing anyway when it was copy pasted from everywhere. So he was already partial to this inclusion. It's just certain mandates, like where he wants to go completely the opposite direction and do the opposite of what Jews and Christians do. But that was to prove a point. But in other aspects, we see Islam actually take on elements of another culture. That's why Sufism that's why Sufism is very different in Turkey. It's very different in Algeria, and it's very different in Ethiopia. All three would consider themselves Sufi. doing completely different practices.
Yeah. Again, Nuria mentioned this, so Nuria wasn't making it up. This is Mishkat al-Masabi, where it says, do the opposite of what the polytheists do. Let the beard grow long and clip the mustache. And in Sahih Bukhari, the Prophet said, Jews and Christians do not dye their hair, so you should do the opposite of what they do. So just do the opposite, yeah?
Insecure, poor fellas.
If you like these videos and want to support me in my activism, then you can support me on Patreon or PayPal. Stay free, everyone.